pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everyone. Just a reminder, if you have a cell phone, please turn your ringer down. And Miranda, we have roll call, please.
Good evening, Council. I'll start with you.
Here.
Councilor Burrell? Here. Councilor Lundstrom?
Here.
Councilor Scalise?
Here.
Councilor Sherman? Here. Councilor Spradlin?
Here.
Councilor Stout?
Yeah, here. Wow.
Okay.
Good start.
Under our agenda, under staff reports, we did have a discussion about small cell interests, and what we'd like to do is add that to the work session. So in order to do that, I would look for a motion to add small cell regulation to our work session tonight.
I move to switch small cell regulation to the work session.
Okay, we have a motion to put it to work session. Do I have a second?
Second.
There you go.
Larry, I think you won by a nose. Okay, any further discussion on that? Okay, roll
Mayor,
call.
I've got one thing.
Yes.
Are we able to add on to the Dola Energy Impact Fund grant application? We have another grant application that we were notified of today, and it's just to submit the application. If it comes to be after Greg Edo calls us tomorrow, the deadline is Friday.
Okay.
So we won't be meeting again, and it's simply a application.
Can we do that without the 24-hour notice? I'll look to the attorney, I guess.
Yeah, we can make an emergency motion because of the deadline.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to add,
One additional grant application
okay,
for the Dola Tier 1 or the READY grant, R-E-D-I. Rural
Okay.
Economic Development Initiative grant.
okay, I'd look for a motion on that item from council.
Do we need to vote on the motion already out first?
You mean add it to the motion we have, or a separate motion?
Well, I just want to ensure that we get on there with item C.
Okay, let's make it a separate motion. We're to the point we need to vote on the first motion and second, and then we'll make another motion to do that. So we could have roll call.
Councilor Burrell?
Yes.
Councilor Spradlin?
Yes.
Councilor Lundstrom?
Yes.
Councilor Sherman?
Yes.
Councilor Stroud?
Yes.
Councilor Scalise?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes. Okay, we'll look for a motion on the second item.
I move we add the approval to apply for the Dola Ready Grant application to, is it C? Yeah.
It's READY and an Energy Impact Fund grant.
Ready and Energy Impact Fund grant to C. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to add that. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Allison seconds. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilor Sherman?
Yes.
Councilor Scalise?
Yes.
Councilor Stroud?
Yes.
Councilor Lundstrom?
Yes.
Councilor Spradlin?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes. Okay, we've all had a chance to look over.
Councilor Burrell?
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, we skipped, okay. Okay, that motion is affirmed. Okay, moving on to number 3, approval of minutes. We've all had a chance to look at the regular meeting minutes from February 8th. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
I make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted. Is there a second?
Second.
Justin, second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilor Lundstrom?
Yes.
Councilor Sherman?
Yes.
Councilor Burrell?
Yes.
Councilor Scalise?
Yes.
Councilor Stroud?
Yes.
Councilor Spradlin?
Yes.
Mayor Bain?
Yes. Okay, number 5. Oh, well, let's see. Citizen comment. Is there anyone that would like to publicly comment? Okay, give me 1 second. I got to read something here for that. Citizens are invited to speak to council on any item that does not have a public hearing scheduled. There's a 5-minute time limit per person unless otherwise noted by the mayor. Please note that no formal action will be taken on an item that is not on the posted agenda due to the open meeting law provision. However, they may be placed on a future posted agenda if action is required. To better assist you with questions, please submit them in writing to the city clerk and someone from staff will respond. So, sir, if you'd like to come up to the podium and give us your name and address, please.
My name is Robert Gifford. I live at 14 Circle Drive here in Brush, Colorado. We moved here in August.
Okay.
And what I would like to ask the council is to bring up the possibility of being able to keep chickens. We moved here from Colorado Springs. We were able to keep 10 hens down there. And I never even thought when we moved up here that we wouldn't be able to. But I called the city to see how many I could and found out we couldn't have any. So I gave my sister my chickens. But anyway, we love fresh eggs. And I just, I understand no roosters and all those kind of things, but I just thought maybe that would be something you could put on the docket or however you guys do that. That's
Okay.
it.
All right. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you.
I can add that that was quite an item that we had on the agenda about, how long would we say, 6 years?
6, 8 years.
Maybe 8 years ago. And it was voted down at that time.
It was voted down.
Yes. But
What were the reasons, if I might ask?
the reasons were very, I wasn't on council at that time. It was people, well, the rooster things, you're right. Morgan has them and they allow them. They don't allow roosters, but they allow chickens. It was, if I remember right, a lot of people felt that the privacy of your neighbors could be impacted by chickens, and that chickens, a lot of people in some communities, it was kind of a novel idea to have chickens, and then after they weren't laying eggs so good, they were letting them go. There was so many, and that it was causing other rodents to come into the community and things like that. But it was something that happened 8 years ago that was voted down by council at that time because the community just didn't seem to want it.
Well, when you all consider that, one thing they are doing, I know in the springs, is as chickens, they don't lay after a couple of years, they just stop laying.
Yeah,
And down in the springs, they have a butcher that volunteered, and they butcher those chickens and they give them to the mission down there for the homeless. So that might be.
yeah, that would be good.
Go out there. I butcher 'em, but
All right, well, thank you, Monty.
We can put on a work session and we can do a little bit of homework of
Okay,
what happened 6, 8 years ago, see if we have a file on that.
okay, all right,
Just minutes from the meeting of what occurred.
okay, sounds good. All right, is there anyone else that would like to publicly comment tonight? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to management portion of the meeting. 5A, ratification of small business relief grant awards. Rick Roglian. Can't bring your chip with you.
Just a quick review. The one you
Okay. I was like, I wasn't prepared for this one, so I'm sorry. We had 4 applicants, all 4, the guidelines were they had to be a restaurant, a bar, a health center, like a gym, that kind of line of work.
And theaters, wasn't it?
Theaters, that's correct. That was the 4th one. Matt Gordon, before he left, created a spreadsheet of like 18 businesses that actually were eligible. So Matt and I, before he left, visited a few of them, and then I finished visiting the rest of them, handed out actual paper applications. And out of those, 4 people applied, 4 businesses applied. And so I actually went back to all the restaurants and asking them to apply, please apply, we have this money, and only 4 did. So out of those 4, the requirements were you had to have a 20% loss from 2019 to 2020. And our lowest loss was actually 40%. That was the lowest. No, sorry, that was the highest was 40. The lowest was 110%. So,
Wow.
yeah, it was a devastating business, but they're still afloat. They're still making it. The caps were $3,500 a piece, and so we distributed $14,000 worth.
And those are in your bills, you see the
Right.
pays in there.
Yeah, we approved
And
those tonight.
When we do the ratification, that usually that's, if you remember at the last meeting, we weren't gonna have another meeting
Mhm.
before Rick sent those checks out, so now you know what those numbers are, and the ratification just approving it now. We just put it in the minutes and it's officially done.
Good, all right, good work. Okay, so with that, I would look for a motion on this item.
I would move to ratify the Small Business Relief Grant Awards.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second. Dan
Dana.
beat me.
Okay,
Oh,
you think?
okay.
Oh,
Lady-
That's all right, go to Dana, that's
Always
fine.
goes to Dan. Always goes to Dan.
I'll give it to Dana. Okay, any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Scalisi,
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Gural,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Bang.
Yes. Okay, next item, 5B, the bid award for the pond at Pettis Park. I have Lance on this. Who's going to speak to that?
No one showed up for the bids, turned in a bid packet, so
Okay.
there's nothing to,
I have something on that.
Okay.
So I work with a contractor that actually called me on this and requested in the future to give more time. I guess the meeting was Wednesday and the bid was due Friday, is what he told me.
I think that sounds right.
That's really hard to do.
Yeah, a
So-
2-day window is all?
Yeah, so if you can, in the future, maybe just allow a little more time for that, because he was interested, but he's like, I can't get it put together.
What's ideal for, like, what timeline?
A week would be minimum.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if, Lance isn't here, but I'm not sure if that was they announce it, and then you have so many days to look at it, and then they have like a pre-bid or.
Yeah, they had a
your-
pre-bid
your
meeting.
Final questions about it, but it was a pretty simple project, so it wasn't complex or anything. But what they said today, the engineer in Lance and Dale Cloric, was that they're gonna push it out for 2 more weeks
Okay.
and see if any of the 2 companies that showed up to the pre-bid, if they're interested in still bidding on it.
Okay, so let me ask you, Dan, on this item, since we're not going to have a motion, we don't have any bids, should we ask for a motion to table the item or just move on?
Who set the bid deadline?
With the city with the engineers, set the bid deadline.
So I don't think you don't need to
Okay,
make a motion.
all right. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to 5C, Dola Energy Impact Grant Application for Public Safety Complex Site and Fire Training Center. Monty.
Okay, so this is the item that we added the Energy Impact Fund grant application that I'll talk about in a minute, and the Ready Grant. But this first one is for the Fire Training Center and the site development for the Fire Training Center. About a week or so ago, we visited with Greg Edel with Department of Local Affairs, and he says, hey, this might qualify for the grant. So that was good to hear that. The challenge is, he goes, the grant's due Friday,
March 1st, right?
March 1st.
Yeah, I heard
So we reached out quickly to the fire chief to see if we want to tackle it, and he said yes. And so we have a small grant team meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock.
Bless
Which
you.
will be city clerk, the city administrator, the fire chief, and Joanne. And we sent out all the information to everyone last week so they can start preparing, and we are gonna, in one day, put together this grant application. We can do it, right, Joanne?
It's going to be a long day.
So I think this is about the record, if not, it's close. But it's a really short deadline, but we've always been very, very successful in these grants. And what Dola explained was that this year, they're not gonna do a tier 2 grant, which is the higher dollar ones. They're gonna compress everything and try and spread out the money for a lot of tier 1 grants. And so, we have information that's still supposed to be coming in today. I haven't seen it from the engineers on cost estimates, but, fire chief, he texted me and said that they've got a lot of their justifications and everything put together. So we think that, yeah, 200,000 is the max for the grant, but the project's gonna be higher, of course. So we gotta figure out all those details very quickly tomorrow, submit those. And then I believe sometime around June, there will be a hearing, and we'll go into the hearing and we present our case and see if we get a our training facility partially paid for and infrastructure out to it paid for.
Okay, so we're looking for approval of the application
Ju-
itself.
Just to submit an application.
Okay,
And then I'll go on to the next one. after
okay.
that.
All right, with that, I'll turn it over to council for motions.
I move we approve submitting the application for the Dola Energy Impact Fund grant.
Okay, Dana makes a motion to approve that. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Allison seconds. Any further discussion? Monty, did you say we'd already preliminarily talked to Greg Edel about that?
Yep.
Particular grant, okay. Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll look for roll call vote.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Scalisi,
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Counselor Guerrero. Yes. Mayor Bain.
Yes. Okay, moving on to 5D, Highway 71/Howard Street Traffic Signal
Well,
Letter.
We've got the amendment, the other grant,
The ready grant.
the other grant, the amendment
added
to the
in the-
agenda.
Oh, that's right, okay.
Yeah, so this
Okay.
one is, it's this, situation is, we received a letter, email this morning, and it said essentially that there's a state, it's called a Just Transition Committee, or team, I can't remember the right name, but anyways, it's a state, team put together, and it is supposed to help communities that may be impacted by the loss of their coal-fired power plants around the state. It's our understanding that there's supposed to be some decisions made in the next month or so in regards to what's gonna happen to the Pawnee Power Plant, which then affects employment of some people in our community, tax bases for different special districts. So essentially what that means is that the state is trying to figure out how to ease that financial or economic impact to those counties and municipalities. So we got this letter saying that there's special funding set aside through the Energy Impact Fund grant that is due Friday. And there's possibility of some assistance with paying for some staffing for economic development purposes, and also ways to determine how communities should respond in preparation for a potential closure. So we don't have much time, and I did talk to Greg Edel today about this one, and he's gonna find out more today and then get back with me. But there's a chance we might be able to get some economic development funds out of this, and potentially fund a position to help with building up our local economy. Don't have much more than that, what I can offer at this point, because it's just hot off the press, but we just wanna be prepared to apply for it, and that's for the Energy Impact Fund grant for maybe a person for a year, 2 or 3, we just don't know. But we're figuring it out. So we're gonna do grant number 1 first, and then we're gonna switch over to this one. And so this will be a record. Two grants in a week. But that one is an approval for the Energy Impact Fund's applications for economic development purposes.
Okay.
And realize this too, that this is to put together an application, but really this will also come back to the council if we are awarded the grant, we have to sign a contract that will be brought back to council, because that'll be obligating funds, and council has to do that. So that's one. The Ready grant, we have a little more time with that one, so we've got another 30 to 45 days, I believe, on that one.
I think until May
Maybe longer.
15th or
Yeah, it
something.
might be a couple months.
Yeah.
So don't need to really do much with the Ready grant, but just be aware. The Ready grant is the Rural Economic Development Initiative Fund. It was previously put together for communities that lost prisons. Remember, we lost our prison in Brush, so there is an economic impact. So the state created that fund and would put a few million dollars in it each year, and then those communities could apply for those. And I think we've applied for it either 2 or 3 times. 2 times. And that's what helped with the Brush Agri Park, getting the water lines and the sewer, maybe part of the sewer lines water lines, roads, and all that stuff out there. But it's really helped out, but we'll come back to council when we have more information on that one. So we just need approval to submit for a second Energy Impact Fund grant for economic development purposes.
Okay. Yeah, and that's very atypical that we have this short a window to apply, because you're right, it's hot off the press, because I got my copy just 3 days ago, so. All right. All right, so with that, I'd look for a motion on this Energy Impact Fund grant.
I move we apply for an additional Energy Impact Fund grant for economic development,
Okay,
or thereabouts.
okay. Have a motion by Kevin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dan, I'll give you this one.
All right.
I waited. You were fast.
I jumped as fast
I
as I
know,
could.
good job.
Okay, we have a second by Dan Scalisi. Any further discussion on this item? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Garrell,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Counselor Scalisi,
Yes.
Mayor Bay.
Yes. Okay, moving on to 5D, Highway 71 Howard Street Traffic Signal Letter. Again, this is Monty.
There's a letter in your packet, and that packet, that letter is prepared and already signed by the mayor, but we want to get approval by all of council. This is the traffic signal on Highway 71 and Howard Street, right by the middle school. Shortly after our meeting, our training that we had, during that training, we actually talked about this traffic signal, if I remember right. But I did get a call from a private company, a consulting firm for CDOT, and they said that they're assessing brushes, traffic signals, and they said that they're doing what's called a warrant study, traffic signal warrant study. And those studies, they look at 5 to 7 different aspects of that intersection, and then they determine if it really needs a traffic signal or not. And then they also were aware that the middle school was coming down, so they asked if there's any concerns if they moved that. And so we quickly set up a staff meeting, talked about it, then we had a meeting with the school district, talked about it, and we just thought it's better to keep the traffic signal there. And sometimes when they do those warrant studies, it doesn't matter what the community says, because if they go by CDOT's criteria. But this one's already existing, and we presented the case that it sounds like the school district has interest in other things there. And so, but we don't think only leave it, but we thought improve it. Look at the new technologies, different types of lights that they use now. And before we set that off, we just wanted approval by the city council.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, with that, I would look for a motion.
I move we approve this letter to be sent regarding the traffic signal at Highway 71 and Howard Street.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the letter. Do we have a second?
Second.
Justin?
He was over there waiting for the
Second.
opportunity.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Counselor Garrell,
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Scalisi,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Mayor Bay.
Yes. And I want to thank council for that, because I think it is very important that we keep that signal on Colorado Avenue, just because of the crossing from there. I know that's in your wheelhouse there.
Goes to my points all the time is the safety of the kids crossing. There's a lot of
Yeah.
kids in that neighborhood.
And I think it also serves on Colorado Avenue to slow traffic down with the light there too. So I think we need to do everything we can to try to keep that. Okay, moving on to 5E, Ordinance 883-21, and I have Rick Kroglian.
Good evening again, councilors. So this ordinance, number 883-21, is adopting a different date and a number for our floodplain maps. And so, just to bring your attention, I know you looked in your packets, Loranda has done a lot of job of just going through trying to cleaning up. Some of it was redundant, and she cleaned up, so she did a great job on that. But there's really two things that I'm bringing your attention. No, three. Sorry, I always say two, maybe three, but two. The first two things are we're going from an A to a B. It's just a different map number, and so and I called today to talk to a guy named Doug Mahan, and he is the one who's been interacting from the state to us to make sure that we adopt this floodplain map. And so I will address something from him in just a second, but I've been coordinating with him for the last few months, and then today we had a lengthy conversation just to address questions if you have questions. And then second is the date. We were going from April 4th, 2018, which is the last time this was adopted, changed, or amended in our code. And so it's basically every 2 or 3 years that they do a revision, and then this is what this is. So it's really out of our control except to adopt it. So we could potentially be penalized if we don't adopt it. And so that's it. And the other thing that we've, beside the corrections, cleaning it up, we did make an adjustment at the end of it. We put the city council may make administrative updates to incorporate new flood insurance studies by resolution, so that it'll be much easier to adopt the new every time the map were to change. So it's a lot easier for resolution. So what I want to reassure you on, I know some people could have questions of how is this going to affect me in my home or structure in our city. And I'll read to you directly from what they told me, because I wanted to make absolute sure what we were accepting, this map. And it says, here's the area of your community that is included in the FIRM panel, which is one panel that the map was updating, by the way. And it lists that panel, which is going in effective 5/18/21. There is no flood source in this area of your town, therefore there is no change from the 2018 firm panel. There's no change. So I think that was one thing that could ease some people's confusion or even fear of what would happen for flood insurance. So this was well documented in our community. They have, he had shown me different dates that he had had meetings with Monty, community, Jim Zwetzig. I have at least 5 meetings here that they've had to kind of prepare for this change, even though it's really, it's not changing, it's just changing their map to indicate what he called delineating where the floodway is. And some of the maps, it's there, it just doesn't have the terminology on it. And this one actually has the terminology, and that was really all the change.
So no material change to
No
our
material
floodplain
change.
map. And we struck through the language on the community meetings because they're not germane to this adoption, right?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Any questions from council about that? Okay. With that, I'd look for a counselor to introduce the motion or the ordinance by title.
I move to introduce ordinance number 883-21, an ordinance amending various provisions of the Brush Municipal Code to incorporate the new flood insurance study for Morgan County, Colorado, and incorporated areas dated May 18th, 2021.
Okay, the ordinance has been introduced. Now I'd look for a motion to approve on first reading and publish.
I move to approve on first reading ordinance number 883-21.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
A second?
Dana, second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Garrell,
Yes.
Counselor Scalise,
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Mayor Bain.
Yes. Okay, moving on to number 6, finance.
I move we approve disbursements and payroll from February 9th, 2021 to February 22nd, 2021 in the amount of $222,332.46.
Okay, we have a motion to approve disbursements and payroll. Do I have a second?
A second.
Larry, second. Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Counselor Garrell,
Yes.
Counselor Scalise,
Yes.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Mayor Bain.
Yes. Okay, moving on to number 7, staff reports. First up, I have Assistant Administrator Rick Rugwin and Community Development Director.
And floodplain manager and building. Inspector.
Extraordinary.
Double duty, and Building Inspector.
Development, yes. At your service. The only thing I wanted to report is just been working a lot on these ordinance changes. And we'll, in work session, we'll talk about some of these things. Spent a lot of time doing building permits, more than I've ever done, and inspections. So I've spent a lot of time calling Wiggins and Fort Morgan and talking to their building departments to make sure that we're all consistent. So created a lot of notebooks now of how we're tracking permits, how we're tracking inspections, and keeping hard copies of the inspections too. So we've never had any of that. So you could say, can I see your reports? We didn't have any. So it was more like a pass-fail. Now we have inspection reports that we've saved and kept. So another thing is 304 Clayton. The goal is to be finished by the second week of March, and then we'll start moving in. So hopefully by the end of March we'll be in a new building. So we'll have to get some furniture over there too. Another reason to spend some more money, Joe. So we're moving good. That's all I report.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Derek Boss, Chief of Police.
Good evening. Just a couple things briefly. On Friday, 9 members of our department went to Sterling. They had a commander pass away from cancer, so we went to the funeral. A lot of gratitude from Sterling PD for our support. I spent a couple other days there last week as well helping out, so just a big kudos to the officers in our department. Also last week, we began our rollout of some of the Senate Bill 217 compliance materials that we asked money for. Thanks, Joanne. The big piece of that is the body-worn cameras, the upgrades. We have training on that this week and next week, and should be fully up and running by the end of next week with those. So great improvement for our department as well. And then the other piece of that is some of our backup storage and technology stuff is also in place and or will be finished by next week. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Chief.
Are we gonna end up hiring somebody to help go through that footage, Chief?
So we already did.
Oh.
We had that position part-time last year and made that full-time this year. So, and the person we already had on pay for that left at the beginning of the year. We hired somebody else already to take that place.
Cool.
Okay. All right, next up, Joanne Gosselin, Finance Director.
While Derek and Rick think they need to spend money, I'm going to tell you about a small little pile we're going to get back in. You may recall that during the budget sessions and the work sessions that we talked about Colorado Employers Benefit Trust, which is our health insurance, and the fact that they had proposed that we would probably see a dividend return in the month of February. We did get an email, and so there was, due to the low claims costs during the months of April through June of last year, the overall dividend return declared was $11.5 million to their plan participants. We will be receiving $585 payable per employee enrolled through June of 2020. So with my calculations, it should be close to $28,665 for a dividend from our health insurance.
Very nice.
That's good news. Okay, next up, Loranda Packard, City Clerk.
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Dan Krob, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been working on some small cell stuff, which you'll hear about in the work session. Rick and I have been working on a couple ordinances, and I've been working with PD on a couple just minor inconveniences at this point.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor and council reports. Does anyone have anything to report?
Of course I do.
Allison?
I feel like I always talk and no one ever does. First I wanted to say thank you to Dan and Kevin for allowing me both the library board and the NECALC. That I had both of those meetings recently. That was fantastic. There are a couple things that came out of it that I wanted to share with council. The library, because we moved to Blue, we're gonna be going back to normal story time for the kids, and they do believe that we are gonna get to have the Easter egg hunt this year.
Oh, good.
Yes, so they're pretty excited about that. And the Thompson school visits will be resuming. So the kids will get beginning to go back to the public library.
Okay.
Also, in case anyone wants to brush up on their languages, something I didn't know about the library, which is amazing because I go there like twice a week. Mango Languages is free with your library card if you want to brush up on your languages.
What is Mango Languages?
It's like an app basically, so you can learn a second or third language.
It's muy bueno.
Yeah, I'm partially bilingual, so it's kind of nice for me because I can brush up on it, but then I can
Yeah.
also pick up a few more. Of more serious note, the NECALG meeting brought up something that I thought was really interesting. I'm going to forward it to Dan as soon as I can have cell service or something. There is a mask order that was put out for all public transportation per the FFA, the CDC, and CDOT. This includes privately owned public transportation companies. So it is a mask order not only for the rider, but the driver.
And when does that go into effect?
It went into effect the beginning of
Oh, it already
February.
has. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So I will forward that along so that it can, Dan can review it and it can get shared out, because they did send it to me, the director sent it to me. Also, they're looking for a part-time ombudsman for Morgan County. The ad is on Indeed to support our senior citizens, so if you know anyone that's looking. And then, I don't know if anyone else is aware, but there is an education committee meeting. It's soon to not be NJC. They are looking to drop the junior from their title.
Oh,
So that'll be voted on here soon. And then lastly, MCC is in the final stages of accreditation for its bachelor's in nursing. And that's kind of a big thing. We have a lot of those nursing students around here. I have one in my own household. So it's kind of neat.
yeah, that was exciting. A couple of years ago, they accepted everyone into that program that first year, I think, that wanted in, was given a grant or something to get in.
Mhm.
That's great.
Accreditation is a huge step, especially for a bachelor's program. I do believe it'll be their first accreditation for a bachelor's program.
Okay, great. How often does NECAL meet?
Once a month.
Once a month? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, anyone else?
Mayor, I did have a report.
Go ahead, stand up.
Did we miss you, Monty?
Oh, I'm sorry. Just a couple things. The one city house or farmhouse that the city owned just east of town, we're pretty close to being done with that.
Okay.
Starting to move towards the HVAC system now. And we hope in the next few weeks that'll be installed. And then we also have just the kitchen area, living room and kitchen area to finish up. And then all of the inside of the house is pretty much ready to go. And I'll come back to council and throw a few ideas your way on what we want to do with it. We normally don't like to be in the rental business, but then we also have some officers that might be looking for housing, interns that are looking for housing, but it might be something we use for something like that.
Great.
Other things, speaking of NECALG, their transportation director, he's the one that coordinates the bus stang. I was talking about putting a bus stop here in Brush. And we talked through a little bit at a staff level about the right across the street here. With the amount of traffic at the post office and the limited parking, we thought it might not be the best location, but we're gonna be looking at the middle school site, old middle school site. That will have to be approved by the school district.
Mhm.
But we're also looking at somewhere in the downtown area too. That might have more parking, because over time, they believe you'll have some, right off the bat, not a lot, but some people who don't wanna drive in the big cities, they'll park their car there, then they'll get onto the bus, go to Greeley or Denver, then they'll come back and get their car. We just wanna make sure there's gonna be plenty of space for that. And, he'll also be coming in to speak to council on the second meeting in March. Presentation by the transportation director of NECALG.
Oh, okay,
To
great.
answer the questions about costs, times, things like that.
Did he reach out to you? Because he had asked me who you should speak with, and I told him it was you.
Yeah, that was a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
There's a lot of parking downtown. It wouldn't hurt to have people go down there.
Yeah, right, yeah, that's what I thought too. Okay. All right. Anyone else have, council have anything to report? Well, I have one thing to report, and boy, I'm getting tired of this. Community members passing away. Since the last meeting, we had Steve Treadway, and Harry Rieger passed away last week. Harry was a member of city council. I don't know if he served 2 terms, do you know?
I
Dan?
think so.
I think he was a 2-term. He's also been on our Board of Adjustment for many, many years. So I'd like to express our condolences to his family tonight. So, with that, we move on to number 9, executive session that we have on the agenda. I would look for a motion to move into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute, Title 24, Article 6, Section 402, at subsection 4E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. The matter to be discussed is update on potential water project.
Okay, we have a motion to go into executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dan seconds. Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Counselor Spradlin,
Yes.
Counselor Stroud,
Yes.
Counselor Sherman,
Yes.
Counselor Lundstrom,
Yes.
Counselor Garrell,
Yes.
Counselor Scalisi,
Yes.
Mayor Bain.
Yes. Okay, we have our 2/3 majority to move into executive session, so I'll have to ask to clear the chamber, and we'll start the executive session immediately.